The wind howled across the frozen plains of Erinder, cutting through Kale's thick jacket like knives. The small human outpost was buried under a blanket of snow, and the icy air seeped through the walls despite the heating system working at full power. Kale had been alone for weeks, monitoring the planet's unusual wildlife and collecting data about the rare dragon species that lived in hidden caves far to the north. Most nights, he spent staring out of the small observation window, watching the snow swirl and thinking about how small and fragile life seemed in this frozen place. Tonight, though, something felt different. Kale noticed faint, glowing shapes moving across the snow outside. At first, he thought it was the aurora reflecting off the ice, but then the shapes moved closer, small and deliberate. He frowned, rubbing his eyes. In the blizzard, it was nearly impossible to see anything clearly, yet he could swear the movement was alive. His heart began to beat faster. Could it really be the dragon hatchlings he had only ever read about in old research reports? Kale shook his head and returned to his warm blanket inside. The night was long and lonely, and he tried to focus on his notes, scribbling about the temperature changes and energy readings. But every few minutes the sense of something near the outpost grew stronger. A soft tapping sound came from the wall near the floor, almost like tiny claws against the metal. Kale froze. He crept toward the noise, heart pounding, and lowered himself to the floor. Through the dim light of the emergency lamps, he saw a tiny shape, smaller than any animal he had ever studied, trembling against the cold. Its body was covered in soft, iridescent scales that glowed faintly blue in the light. Tiny wings, too small to fly yet, curled around it, trying to trap what little warmth it had. Kale's breath caught in his throat. A dragon hatchling, real, alive, and alone in the snowstorm, was right in front of him. Before he could even think, more tiny shapes appeared, crawling cautiously into the room. Kale counted 5 small dragons, each one shivering and looking for warmth. They moved slowly, unsure of him, but their instincts had led them straight to the outpost. They were frightened, but something in Kale's calm presence seemed to reassure them. Kale knelt slowly, careful not to scare them. His hand hovered above the first hatchling, and it sniffed the air, flicking its tiny head. Slowly, it leaned into his touch, and Kale felt a surge of relief and wonder. He had read about dragons, studied their biology from afar, but never had he touched one. Its scales were surprisingly soft, warmer than he expected, and its tiny heart beat rapidly under his fingers. He looked around at the others, all trying to crawl closer, seeking heat and safety. Kale's mind raced. He could not let them freeze to death in the cold night. Without thinking too much, he grabbed a spare blanket from the bed and gently scooped up the hatchlings one by one. They wriggled, making soft, high-pitched noises, but none resisted. It was as if they trusted him instinctively. Kale wrapped them all carefully, arranging them so they could huddle together, sharing body warmth. For the first time in weeks, Kale felt a real smile form on his face. The isolation and cold were no longer so heavy. These tiny creatures, lost and fragile, had found him and he could help them survive. He whispered softly to them, talking in a calm voice, telling them they were safe. They chirped back in tiny, strange sounds, curling closer under his hands. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside Kale's small room, there was a quiet warmth that had nothing to do with the heater. He sat back against the wall, holding the blanket close around himself and the hatchlings. He marveled at their small, glowing eyes and delicate wings. Each one seemed unique, different colors, different patterns of scales, but all equally vulnerable. Kale thought about the dangers they must have faced outside, the cold, predators, and the blizzard that had nearly taken them. Now they were safe, for tonight at least. Hours passed, and the storm outside slowly softened. Kale stayed awake, watching over the tiny dragons, checking that each one was breathing and moving gently. They twitched in their sleep, occasionally making tiny chirps, and Kale felt a strange pride swell inside him. These dragons, creatures of legend, had chosen him. They had trusted a human with their lives, and he knew he would do everything he could to protect them. By dawn, the snow had settled into a soft, sparkling blanket across the plains. Kale looked down at the hatchlings, sleeping peacefully in the warm embrace of the blanket. He felt a connection he had never experienced before, a quiet, powerful bond between human and dragon, fragile yet undeniable. In the cold, lonely world of Erinder, a small miracle had happened. A human had found dragon babies in need, and in return he had gained something extraordinary, the trust of legends come to life. The morning light filtered weakly through the frost-covered windows, casting pale streaks across Kale's small room. Outside, the blizzard had faded, leaving a sparkling white landscape that stretched to the horizon. Kale stirred carefully, making sure the hatchlings were still sleeping safely under the blanket. Their tiny bodies huddled together, soft scales glowing faintly in the dim sunlight. He could not stop smiling. Even in this frozen world, life had a way of surprising him. Kale sat on the edge of the bed, gently lifting one of the hatchlings to check on it. Its tiny wings fluttered weakly, and it made a soft chirping noise. He spoke in a quiet voice, "You're safe now. Nothing will hurt you here." The hatchling blinked at him with curious golden eyes as if it understood. Kale marveled at how intelligent these creatures seemed even at such a young age. Every movement, every twitch of their tails showed that they were alive and aware. He spent the morning preparing a small area near the heater, lining it with soft blankets and cushions. Kale carefully moved the hatchlings into the enclosure, making sure each one had space but could still stay warm by huddling together. They chirped softly, exploring their new surroundings. Kale watched them with fascination. Each tiny dragon had its own personality. One was bold, crawling right to the edge of the blanket and stretching its tiny wings. Another was shy, hiding under the folds of the blanket and peeking out with cautious eyes. Kale laughed quietly, amazed by their differences. As he observed them, Kale remembered the stories of humans who had encountered dragons long ago. Most had treated the creatures as dangerous beasts, taking them for profit or sport. But Kale had a different feeling. These hatchlings were small and helpless, and his duty was clear. They needed warmth, protection, and care. His mind worked quickly, thinking of ways to ensure they survived in this harsh world. He would need to gather food soon. Nutrients for growing dragons were rare, even on Erinder. Kale made a mental note to explore the nearby caves, where he might find insects and small creatures that were safe for the hatchlings to eat. Hours passed quickly. Kale had grown used to their small chirps and the soft rustle of wings. At one point, a hatchling climbed onto his shoulder, pressing its tiny head against his neck. Kale froze for a moment, surprised by the trust it showed. He gently stroked its back, feeling the warmth of its small body. "You're brave," he whispered. "And you're going to survive." The dragon blinked slowly, almost in understanding, and Kale felt a strange bond forming, something deeper than curiosity or instinct. It was trust. And Kale knew he had earned it. Suddenly, a distant rumble echoed through the frozen plains. Kale froze, listening. The sound was low and heavy, like the steps of a massive creature. His heart pounded. Could it be the mother dragon returning? Or something more dangerous? He looked at the hatchlings. Their ears twitched and their tiny bodies stiffened. They were aware of the sound too. Kale realized that he had to act carefully. If the mother returned and sensed danger, she could attack without hesitation. But if he approached with calm, showing he meant no harm, she might understand. Kale moved slowly to the observation window. In the distance, a shadow moved among the snowdrifts, massive and powerful. His breath caught. The mother dragon, larger than anything he had imagined, had returned. Her scales glimmered in the sunlight, a mix of silver and blue, and her eyes, sharp and intelligent, scanned the horizon. Kale held his breath, staying very still. He knew this was a critical moment. Any sudden movement might frighten her, and he could lose the trust of the hatchlings, or worse, put himself in danger. For long moments he just watched. The mother dragon sniffed the air, then lowered her massive head toward the hatchlings. Kale held his hands out slowly, showing no weapon, no threat. "I'm helping them," he whispered, almost to himself. The dragon's eyes studied him, then shifted back to her young. She let out a low, melodic hum, a sound Kale had only read about in ancient texts. The hatchlings chirped back, curling closer together. Kale exhaled quietly, relieved. The mother had accepted his presence. By evening, Kale had managed to feed the hatchlings with small rations he prepared, and the mother dragon stayed near, watching over them with cautious trust. Kale realized that this was the beginning of something extraordinary. He had not only saved the hatchlings from the freezing night but also earned the respect of a creature larger and older than humans themselves. For Kale, the world no longer felt lonely. He had found companionship in the most unexpected form: dragons, creatures of legend, now trusting a human to care for their young. As the sun set behind the icy mountains, Kale sat with the hatchlings snuggled in his lap. Their tiny hearts beat quickly but steadily, and he felt a quiet pride. This was more than survival. It was a bond between human and dragon, fragile yet strong. In the cold and harsh world of Erinder, Kale had discovered that warmth was not just in blankets or heaters. It was in care, trust, and understanding. And for the first time he truly felt that humans, in their kindness and courage, could make a difference even among legends. The next morning, Kale awoke to an uneasy silence. The blizzard had fully passed, leaving the plains bright and sparkling under the weak sun. But something felt wrong. The hatchlings were restless, chirping and fluttering their tiny wings more than usual. Even the mother dragon, who had stayed near Kale through the night, seemed tense. Kale frowned. He could feel it in the air, a disturbance, a danger approaching that had nothing to do with the cold. He stepped carefully to the observation window and scanned the horizon. At first there was nothing but snow and ice. Then he saw a dark line moving across the plains. At first he thought it was a shadow, but as it came closer he realized it was a group of humans. Miners, raiders, or scavengers, he couldn't tell. They moved quickly, carrying strange tools and weapons, scanning the snow like predators. Kale's heart sank. He knew what they wanted. The dragons. Rare creatures worth a fortune to the wrong people. Kale turned to the hatchlings. They chirped in alarm, sensing the humans' presence. The mother dragon lifted her massive head, nostrils flaring, and let out a low, warning growl. Kale held up his hands, speaking softly. "Stay calm," he whispered. "I'll protect you." He didn't know if the humans would listen or if the mother would attack, but he had to try. The survival of the hatchlings depended on him. Kale quickly gathered blankets and some of his equipment. He knew he couldn't fight the humans directly, they had weapons in numbers. But he could use his knowledge of the terrain and his wits to defend the hatchlings. He set up a small barrier of equipment around the enclosure, hoping to make it harder for anyone to get close. Then he spoke gently to the mother dragon, who lowered her massive body to the ground. "I'll keep them safe," he said. "Trust me." The dragon's eyes, intelligent and sharp, studied him for a long moment. Then with a slow nod, she relaxed slightly, showing she believed him. As the humans drew closer, Kale watched, his mind racing. He noticed the tracks in the snow. They were moving fast but not carefully. The humans had not expected dragons here, and that might be their mistake. Kale quickly thought of a plan. Using a small thermal flare from his supplies, he created a bright burst of heat and light near the edge of the plains. The humans stumbled back, momentarily blinded and confused. The mother dragon growled and stepped forward, her massive wings creating gusts of wind that made the snow swirl violently. The humans froze. Kale's heart pounded. He knew it was risky, but he also knew the humans underestimated both him and the dragons. He shouted, "Go back. You cannot take them." His voice was small compared to the howling wind, but he stood firm. The mother dragon let out a powerful roar that shook the snow-covered mountains. The hatchlings chirped loudly in response, their tiny voices joining the enormous sound. Kale felt a strange pride. The dragons, both young and old, were trusting him to protect them. The humans hesitated. One of them stepped forward, pointing a weapon toward the enclosure, but the mother dragon's massive body rose, her wings spreading wide like a shield. Kale's mind worked quickly. He noticed a narrow path along the cliffs that the humans could not cross easily. With a few gestures and soft whistles, he guided the mother and hatchlings toward the safer path. The humans cursed and shouted, but the snow and cliffs slowed them down. Kale's knowledge of the terrain, his quick thinking, and his calm courage gave him the edge. By afternoon, the hatchlings were safe, nestled under the mother's protective wings, hidden among a cluster of rocks. Kale crouched beside them, catching his breath. The humans were still in the distance, but the mother dragon's presence kept them at bay. Kale looked down at the tiny creatures. Their scales glimmered in the sunlight, soft and delicate, and they chirped softly as if thanking him. Kale felt a warmth in his chest. Despite the danger, he had protected them. He had shown the humans, if they were watching, that courage and cleverness could outmatch weapons and greed. The mother dragon lowered her massive head and gently nudged Kale with her snout. It was a small gesture, but Kale understood it. She trusted him. He had earned her respect not through strength or fear, but through care, patience, and quick thinking. Kale realized then that humans had something unique, the ability to combine intelligence, empathy, and courage in ways that even the oldest creatures in the universe might not expect. As the sun began to set behind the icy mountains, Kale wrapped the hatchlings in blankets again, keeping them warm and calm. The mother stayed close, her eyes scanning the horizon for any remaining threat. Kale felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He had faced danger not with weapons but with understanding and wit. He had saved the hatchlings, earned the mother's trust, and shown that even in a harsh, frozen world, humanity's kindness and courage could shine brightly. That night, Kale watched the stars through the small window. The hatchlings slept peacefully in the blanket, safe and warm. The mother dragon rested nearby, her large form curling protectively around them. Kale smiled, knowing that this was just the beginning. The world was dangerous and threats would come again. But for now he had proved that a human could protect dragons, could stand firm against danger, and could earn trust that no one expected. In the cold, lonely world of Arinder, Kale had found his place, not as a conqueror or hunter, but as a guardian of life, no matter how small or legendary it might be. The next morning the frozen plains of Arinder were quiet, but Kale knew danger could return at any moment. The humans who had tried to capture the dragons were gone for now, but their presence had left a warning. Kale looked at the hatchlings, who were stretching and flapping their tiny wings under the warmth of the mother dragon's protection. Their scales shimmered in the pale sunlight, each color unique, soft and radiant. Kale felt a sense of wonder every time he looked at them. They were fragile yet alive, legendary yet real, and they trusted him. Kale decided that they needed a safer place, somewhere hidden from prying eyes. The mother dragon watched as he gathered his supplies and carefully picked up the hatchlings one by one. He whispered to them, "We're going to a better place. You'll be safe there." The dragons chirped softly, seeming to understand. Kale felt a strange pride. Even creatures of legend seemed to sense his intentions. He led the dragons across the snow, toward a narrow canyon he had explored earlier. It was filled with jagged rocks and small caves that were perfect for hiding. As they moved, Kale noticed how intelligent the mother dragon was. She guided the hatchlings, making sure none fell behind or strayed too far. Kale realized that they worked together as a family, and he was lucky to be accepted into it. Humans were strangers to dragons, yet here he was, trusted by the most powerful creatures on the planet. By midday they reached a small cave hidden behind a snowdrift. It was warm inside, protected from wind and observation. Kale arranged blankets and cushions, creating a soft nest for the hatchlings. The mother curled around them, her massive wings folding protectively. Kale smiled. The sight was beautiful and almost unbelievable. Tiny dragons, a legendary mother, and a human working together in harmony, an unlikely family in the frozen wilderness. Kale spent the afternoon teaching the hatchlings simple cues. He clapped his hands lightly, showing them to respond, and used soft whistles to guide them. The hatchlings chirped and moved in response, learning quickly. Kale marveled at their intelligence. They were learning not just to survive but to trust him. He realized humans had a rare gift, an ability to communicate and connect with creatures even far beyond their understanding. As the sun began to set, Kale heard faint noises from outside the cave. He froze, ears straining. Footsteps in the snow. Not human voices, other creatures. Strange alien animals native to Arinder moving toward the cave. Kale's heart beat faster. He could not let the hatchlings be discovered. He glanced at the mother dragon, who rose slowly, nostrils flaring. Her massive body blocked the entrance, wings spreading wide. The alien creatures paused, sensing her presence. Kale realized then how much dragons relied on him and how much he relied on them. Kale stepped forward, hands raised in calm, careful gestures. "Stay back," he said softly. His voice was small but firm. The mother dragon growled, low and deep, vibrating through the cave. The alien creatures hesitated, then turned away, disappearing into the snow. Kale exhaled quietly. Together, human and dragon had protected the hatchlings without violence, using trust, intelligence, and careful strategy rather than weapons. That night, Kale built a small fire outside the cave, careful to keep it low so no one could see it from afar. He cooked simple food for himself, while the mother dragon watched, her eyes gleaming in the firelight. The hatchlings slept peacefully inside, warm and safe. Kale felt a strange joy. He had faced danger and uncertainty and come out stronger. Not because of strength alone, but because he had thought, cared, and worked with the dragons. He realized that humans could do things no one expected. Turn fear into trust, danger into safety, and strangers into family. The days that followed were filled with quiet learning. Kale explored nearby areas for food, always bringing back small creatures and plants the hatchlings could eat. He taught them to recognize safe areas, to respond to his calls, and to trust their instincts alongside his guidance. The mother dragon stayed close, observing and occasionally offering gentle nudges or low growls to guide them. Kale felt a growing connection with them all. He was not just a human on a frozen planet anymore, he was part of their lives, part of their story. One afternoon, as Kale watched the hatchlings play in the snow, he noticed something remarkable. They had grown stronger, wings more defined, tails longer and flexible. They chirped excitedly, exploring rocks and small caves with curiosity. The mother dragon nudged Kale as if acknowledging the progress. Kale smiled. This was more than survival. This was life thriving under care, understanding, and courage. Humans could do more than adapt. They could inspire trust, create bonds, and protect life in ways others could not. As night fell, Kale sat by the small fire watching the stars. The hatchlings slept inside, the mother curled around them. Kale felt a deep sense of accomplishment. They were safe, they were learning, and they were alive. And he realized something powerful: humans could face any challenge with intelligence and heart. The frozen world of Arinder was harsh, but together human and dragon had built a sanctuary. And the bond they shared was stronger than fear, stronger than snow, and stronger than anyone could have imagined. The morning air was crisp and clear, the sun casting a pale golden light across the frozen plains of Arinder. Kale woke early, feeling a sense of excitement he had not known in weeks. The hatchlings were growing stronger every day, and the mother dragon had become calmer around him, her trust complete. Today, Kale planned to let the hatchlings explore beyond the cave for the first time, under careful supervision. It was time to see how far their bond could take them, and how capable humans could be when courage and care guided their actions. He gently lifted the hatchlings from the blanket nest, their tiny claws gripping his fingers as they chirped excitedly. One by one he placed them on the snow outside the cave. The mother dragon spread her massive wings, creating a shield of warmth and wind that protected the hatchlings as they waddled and leaped across the snow. Kale watched with a mix of pride and awe. Each movement, each tiny flap of their wings, was a sign of life thriving in an unforgiving world. Kale knew that the frozen plains were not completely safe. Other humans might still come, drawn by rumors of dragons. Predators native to Arinder also roamed the area. But Kale trusted the hatchlings' instincts, the mother's guidance, and his own careful planning. Together they had survived storms, strangers, and danger. Today would be another test, a chance to prove that humans could not only survive among legends but could protect them, guide them, and earn their trust. As the hatchlings explored, Kale called out to them softly. They responded almost immediately, their tiny voices chirping in recognition. He smiled. Humans had a way of communicating that no other species could match, not with strength or size but with patience, voice, and understanding. The mother dragon watched carefully, occasionally nudging a hatchling forward or back, ensuring they stayed safe. Kale realized that this trust between human and dragon was rare, perhaps unique in the galaxy. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the plains. Kale's heart skipped a beat. Another group of humans, more determined and better equipped than the ones before, was approaching. Their weapons glinted in the sunlight, and their footsteps were heavy in the snow. Kale's mind raced. He could not let them harm the hatchlings or the mother dragon. He knew he had to act fast. He turned to the mother dragon. "We need to protect them together," he said firmly. The dragon's eyes met his, intelligent and focused. With a low growl, she spread her wings, creating a wall of shadow and wind across the snow. Kale moved beside her, raising his hands and shouting to the humans. "Stop. You will not harm them." His voice carried through the crisp air, strong and unwavering. The humans hesitated. They had seen the mother dragon before and knew she was powerful, but they did not expect the human to stand so boldly. Kale's courage, combined with his quick thinking, made the humans unsure. He reached into his pack and pulled out small thermal flares, tossing them strategically to startle and confuse the approaching group. Snow swirled, light flashed, and the humans faltered. The hatchlings, sensing the tension, huddled under the mother's wings. Kale realized that force alone would not win this encounter. He needed to outthink them. Using the terrain, he led the mother and hatchlings along a hidden path through the cliffs. The humans tried to follow, but the snow and rocks slowed them. Kale's knowledge of the land gave him the advantage. The mother dragon moved with him, her massive body shielding the hatchlings while his clever tactics diverted the humans away. Step by step, they reached a hidden canyon, safe and unreachable from the plains. Once they were secure, Kale collapsed against a rock, breathing heavily. The hatchlings chirped, happy and safe, their tiny bodies wriggling in the warmth of the mother dragon's wings. He looked at them and smiled. They had survived together, not through violence but through courage, intelligence, and trust. Kale realized that humans had something unique. They could face danger, think creatively, and protect life in ways no other species could. His heart swelled with pride. That night, Kale sat by the small fire he had built in the hidden canyon, watching the hatchlings sleep peacefully. The mother dragon curled around them, a living shield of protection. Kale felt a deep connection to them, stronger than anything he had ever known. These dragons, once tiny and fragile, were now growing strong, and he had been part of their journey. He had shown that a human could be more than a survivor in a harsh world. He could be a guardian, a friend, and a guide. As the stars shimmered in the frozen sky, Kale whispered softly to the hatchlings, "You are safe. You are free. And you are never alone." The dragons chirped softly in reply, tiny voices full of trust and affection. Kale realized that this simple act, offering warmth, protection and care, had created a bond that might last for years. In the frozen wilderness of Erinder, humans had proven that even the smallest acts of kindness could become legends. The story of Kale and the dragon hatchlings spread slowly, whispered among other explorers and travelers. Humans who heard it marveled at the courage and empathy shown. It was proof that humanity could rise above fear and greed, that intelligence and heart together could protect life, even among legends. Kale looked at the sleeping hatchlings, feeling hope for the future. They would grow, soar across the skies, and perhaps tell their own story of the human who had shown them warmth, courage, and trust. In that quiet, frozen canyon, Kale smiled one last time that night. The dragons slept, safe and free. He knew that together they had achieved something extraordinary. And for the first time in his life on Erinder, Kale felt truly at home, not just in the frozen world but in the hearts of creatures who had once seemed impossible to reach. Humans, he realized, could change the fate of legends, simply by caring, thinking, and never giving up.